as we head up to 1 o'clock. So you're tuned into Cooking with Dominic this morning. I believe our social media platform should be up and about shortly. I'm seeing the Facebook is up, so should also have the YouTube as well. So, as usual, let me say good morning to Mr. and Mrs. Giuseppe, to Mr. and Mrs. Regis. Good morning to Sharon and Bruce, my colleagues. Mother Tunapuna, good morning. Mano, morning, Angie. To Alison Samuel, good morning to you. Patsy Edwards, morning to you as well. Miss Alison Lewis, haven't said good morning to you in a while, so good morning to all of you. Let me just give me a second. Let me just make sure the YouTube is up. So I have to send the link to someone. Okay, this one. Let me just check here. Not seen it as yet. Alright, so hopefully that link will come up shortly. Anjay, yeah. Morning again. Alright, just give me 1 sec. Right, okay. Thank you very much. So I just needed to do a little bit of housekeeping there. So good morning to the haters as well. Let me just say a quick good morning to some of the folks who are joining us on the chat that I'm seeing here. Jacqueline Blackman, good morning. Love Hubert De Sous, good morning. Marcelin Ned, Jennifer Dorset, Maynard Lazare, Vivian Nicholas, good morning. Arlene Stewart, John Edwards, Junior Edwards, Annette Hunt, Hollis Antoine, Alison Boyce, and Anthony Reynolds, Arlene Lewis, Christine Edwards Farrow. Good morning to all of you. Right, so there's one thing I just wanted to read quickly, and I must commend the Minister of Housing for the quick response to a fire that took place yesterday in Orapun. Usually the government gets a lot of licks because they find that they're not doing enough, and people in need and people hurting, and so I would just read this quickly, and this was a release, an urgent media release that was sent out yesterday. Housing Minister oversees relocation of Orapun fire victims. Housing Minister Camille Robinson Regis oversees the urgent relocation of victims of today's fire at an apartment located in Building 222, Orapun Gardens, Piaco. Minister Robinson Regis expressed her concern for the welfare of the victims, noting that this is indeed a very traumatic time for the owner, especially as her 2 children are currently abroad. The HDC will therefore do everything that it can to ameliorate her circumstances. Already, a vacant unit has been identified in another HDC community not far from Orapun, and the unit will be prepared for her to be relocated on a temporary basis. She added, in the interim, the Orapun property will be secured and restoration works will begin at the earliest opportunity. HDC officials received a report of a fire at the Orapun apartment, which has been estimated to have started at approximately 9 a.m. today. That was yesterday. The Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service responded and were able to prevent the blaze from extending to the adjacent apartments. Personnel from HDC's estate management and health and safety departments have already conducted preliminary site visits, and along with the fire services will return to the scene later today. Minister Robinson Regis thanked the personnel from the fire services for their quick response and for ensuring that no other families were unduly affected by the fire. Yes, so... Right, so the minister has shown that she's gotten off to a quick start on the ground running, and is prepared to, respond quickly to situations such as this. So again, kudos to you, Minister. Right. So there were so many things that I wanted to talk about today, but I saw that I was called out yesterday, the usual 12 o'clock show, where, as you know, has been the practice somewhat for the last few weeks. I take, and I've made this point before, that when we sit in front of this microphone, we take it very seriously, because what comes out of our mouth and is transmitted through the airwaves and now to the social media platforms, we don't know who is listening to us. And when you say things, if you come and you decide that you're going to speak on a topic or topics, at least if your claim is that you're going to educate and inform, you yourself should be educated and informed on your topic matter. But when you say things that are incorrect, and people who are listening know better, who may not be inclined to call and correct you at the point in time, if they have another platform, they will do so. Let me make it abundantly clear. I have no intention or any issue of any tit for tat with anybody. I have no problems with anybody. If you want to impart knowledge, great, but let it be accurate knowledge, please. One of my bugbears, one of my pet peeves is when we transmit inaccurate information based on propaganda rather than based on fact. All right? So I got called out, Mr. Economist, when you come on your Sunday program and you come to talk about my show and blah, blah, blah and whatnot and stuff and make the maths. So let me just address a couple things quickly. One, the word is concordat, not concord act, right? It's C-O-N-C-O-R-D-A-T and not concord act, right? That's the first thing. So if you're going to talk about that, at least get that correct. So it tells me that you did your research, because if you did your research, you would see what the correct name is, right? Not to sound petty. Now, this perception that some people have with respect to the allocation of school places, because we had SEA last week, and in a couple of months we're going to have the results, and there would be students who would have put certain prestige schools as their first choice, second choice, and so on. And every year we hear the claim about, it's corruption and they want to send the children where they want to send them, and the children of the privileged few, that they get the prestige schools and whatnot and stuff, and all kind of bacchanal, and 80% that the government sends, it gets 80% of the places, and then the school gets to keep the next 20%, and it's based on who you know and name. And let me address that issue, as someone who would have attended what is called a so-called prestige school. If it is you're going to address a topic like that and you're going to criticize it and make allegations that of corruption and bubble and all kind of thing, and that it is unfair, at least understand the context or the basis upon which this came about, right? And the significance of that 20%. Try and understand it before you criticize it and label it as corruption when that is not the case. So if we look at the so-called prestige schools and the history of these prestige schools and how they came about and the relationship between these schools and the state, then you would have a better understanding of how that 20% functions. You understand? Now, I could speak to my alma mater and the other two schools that form the Holy Ghost Fathers triumvirate in terms of secondary schools. It's St. Mary's College, Fatima, and St. Anthony's are the three Catholic secondary schools that are run by the Holy Ghost Fathers, also known as the Spirit and Order, right? Those three schools. The rules always were that the principals of these schools should always be priests. But those rules came about at a time when there was an availability of priests to facilitate that request. Because now young men are no longer really inclined towards the priesthood, we are seeing a decline in the number of persons who are joining the priesthood, and therefore the Holy Ghost Fathers is significantly diminished. And in the absence of an availability of priests to serve as principals in these schools, they now have to rely on ordinary teachers and so on to serve in these capacities. So right now, St. Mary's College has its first non-priest principal in the person of Nigel Joseph. I saw Fatima recently. Well, they've had non-priest principals for a while. St. Anthony's as well. The holdout really was on St. Mary's College, but again, as I say, because of the shortage of priests, that's where it is. But let me explain to you based on my own understanding of how the significance of this 20%. These schools are government-assisted schools. They are not government secondary schools, which means that in terms of funding, in terms of financing, They do not receive the same amount of money from the state that the government secondary schools, for which the state has 100% control, receives. So every year, these prestige schools that are run by different boards of management will receive a subvention from the state. Unfortunately, these subventions are not sufficient to meet all of the needs of these schools. All right? Now remember when St. Mary's College was started way back in 1863. It was established to cater for certain people, persons of the Catholic faith, and at that time it started off as a small institution where persons would pay for their children to attend. Okay? Who could have afforded back then for the children to pay for the children to attend the school? Ask a silly question. We know who, right? But of course, as time progressed and so on, and the school started to grow and so on, and the ability to access financing became more difficult, they had to look at other avenues and other options to open up the school. Okay? But just like the schools that are run by the Anglican boards, and you have the Catholic boards, and you have the Hindu schools with their Hindu boards, these schools were initially intended to cater for persons of a particular religious persuasion. Okay? And as they decided to make spaces available to the state, through this subvention, basically what the state does every year is purchase 80% of the Form 1 spaces available. 80%. And the school retains the next 20%, and they have say as to who this 20% would go to. What is the significance of that 20% relative to the subvention that these schools get? As someone who sits on the board of the Past Students Union of one of these schools, I can tell you it takes a lot of money to run these schools. A lot more than they receive from the state. And so they have a number of fundraising events, which in and of themselves sometimes provide sufficient money to underwrite the cost of running the school, but in a lot of cases they don't. So again, I could speak to the school to which I went to. St. Mary's College has Fetting with the Saints, better known as the CIC All-Inclusive Fete, which is one of the premier fetes for Carnival. They have Dining with the Saints, which is previously known as CIC Men Can Cook. Then they have Sailing with the Saints, which is a boat ride. And they have other events. I think they recently decided to bring back the Mayfair or whatever it is. And other fundraising events. Now, the school also gets corporate sponsorship. So you have some of these big companies throughout the country who would adopt a class, a classroom, and they would give a certain amount of money to that particular classroom every year. They would fund the needs of this classroom. But again, you need to understand something, that a lot of this comes about because you have past students of the college, alumnus, who are captains of industry, who serve in boardrooms and who occupy the executive positions of some of these companies and want to give back to their school. So, but you would understand some of them would have sons and they are desirable of having their sons attend the secondary school that they attended. They are proud of their alma mater. And the school, therefore, through this 20%, has the facility to be able to accommodate that. What is wrong with, if it is, I went to CIC, I give back to the school, I decide, you know what, I want to make a contribution to my alma mater, and I'm working hard toward the school, and I have a son, and I decide that I want my son to go to CIC. Now, he may very well have the capacity to qualify on his own, based on his intelligence. But if it is that through this 20%, which the school reserves, that belongs to the school, the government purchases 80% of the Form 1 school placings, but the next 20% belongs to the school. So who are you to call that corruption? Why is that corruption? That is an agreement between the school and the state. The school decide, we agree, 80% of the Form 1 placings will go to the government, whoever it is you all want to send here based on yours, whatever is your assessment strategy, good. We retain 20%. This is our school. We built it. We fund most of the activities in the school through private enterprise. A lot of these schools also responsible for recruiting teachers who are not paid by the Ministry of Education. Again, I could speak to that from an empirical standpoint because sitting on the board of the Past Students Union, I have been able to get a better understanding of what are some of the expenses of the school, and this extends to the others as well. Fatima, QRC, St. Anthony's, they have the same expenses. CIC might have a lot more expenses because they have an expansive grounds on Serpentine Road where they have a swimming pool that needs to be maintained. They have this big grounds where it has to be maintained, and they also have staff there who maintain the grounds. Right now, they're in the process of constructing a state-of-the-art indoor cricketing facility to hone on the skills of these young ones who come into the school and who might have that ability to play cricket at a professional level. We're all proud. I saw last week, was it, that everybody was praising Joshua De Silva on his maiden test 100 in the test match against England. But Joshua De Silva is a Saint Soul boy. He passed through St. Mary's College, and he would have honed his skills there too based on, again, the cricketing opportunities that the school provides. And now they want to take that to a different level, and so they're in the process of constructing this indoor facility down at the grounds at Serpentine Road. But that too is costing a lot of money. The subvention that the school receives from the state cannot pay for that. And so therefore it has to be paid for through fundraising activities, through the contributions of private enterprises, through parents who have children going to the school and who have means and who have abilities and who have access and who have connections that they are able to make these contributions. And the school can give back in that way. If one family has 3 sons going to the school already and they have a 4th one who is desirous of going to the school, what is wrong with if the school decide, well, okay, based on our 20% that we reserve, because this is our school that we built and we are simply facilitating the state by providing them with 80% of the Form 1 placings, our 20% that we reserve, we could do it as we please. And therefore, if we have a family where the father came to the school, grandpappy came to the school, and we now have 3 sons from this current generation who are in the school and there's a 4th one, yes, we can facilitate. What is wrong with that? So when I hear this thing about, well, they have 100, if they have 100 places and 300 students want to come to the school and the student get the places, the placing, or they get the marks for the school, but they can't get it because of the 80%, is nonsense. You are competing for the 80%, right? That is provided to the state. The state will allocate and they will make the decision, the Ministry of Education will make a decision who gets that 80%. But when you want to come and you're criticizing that and making it seem as if something wrong with that and it's corruption. When these students go to these schools, and let me enlighten you, right? Because if you're going to come every week and talk about you're going to educate and inform, at least be educated and informed on what you're talking about. And it speaks to the mindset of what I call the enablers with respect to wider society and how resources should be apportioned. 80% of the Form 1 placings are available, whichever school it is, right? So it's a tough call. You have to understand that these schools have a reputation, right? They're very tough when it comes to academia. Albeit, CIC didn't really do very well this year with respect to scholarships and so on, and they're looking at that. But from my time at that school, I could tell you, they place a very, very high premium on academia. A lot of the activities, the co-curricular activities that they have now, weren't available when I was there. Back in the 90s, early 2000s, they didn't have it. And these things would have developed again now because of the ability to access funding. But when you go to St. Mary's College, right, in the first term, everybody is on equal footing when you come in September. There's an exam that they have in December called the streaming exam. All Form 1 students will do this exam. But there are a certain number of students who get the highest marks will be offered the opportunity to move up, same Form 1, but they have 2 special classes. And this is how it was when I was there, and assuming it's still the same way. 2 special classes where they would take the top students from that December exam and you put them there. In term 2, you complete the syllabus for Form 1. And in term 3, Form 1, you begin the syllabus for Form 2. Term 1 and Form 2, you complete the Form 2 syllabus, and for the next 2 terms in Form 2, you will complete the Form 3 syllabus. So but at the end of Form 2, you would have completed the syllabus for Form 1, 2, and 3. At the end of Form 2, you are offered the opportunity, if it is that you are in these 2 special classes, to skip Form 3 and go to Form 4. But it's optional. If it is that you decide you don't want to do it, you can decide you want to go to Form 3 and you repeat the Form 3 syllabus. Some students opt to take it, some don't. But that, it speaks to the demand that is put on these students. So that When it is that a child wants to go to a school, not necessarily because they want to go to, but that is because that is the school mommy wants them to go to and daddy wants them to go to, because of the perception that they're going to do better in this school as opposed to that school. And then you send them there. Okay, they're lucky they get the marks. But then when they go, can they now cope with this new reality? Because it is a facility that is available there. Now, the one issue that I have with it is that, and again, based on my own personal experience, is that so much emphasis is placed on this streamlining exam in Form 1 that sometimes the students who are not successful in getting into the 2 special classes because they didn't make the marks, it makes you feel less than. Right? Like, okay, I wasn't good enough to be able to make that cut. Is it that your child has the mental wherewithal to deal with something like that, such as that disappointment? Again, it is competition. You have to understand. So it starts from SEA. And what SEA does is that it trains these students to be competitive in life. So when I hear people knocking the SEA, and I know it places stress and frustration on the children, because no, I cannot stress enough the importance that competition plays in students succeeding. I have often spoken about that situation with my sister and I, my younger sister and I, where when we were growing up, and it was that competitive element in our relationship that propelled us to do well. Because when we did common entrance, as it was known back then, she passed for her second choice, I passed for my first choice. And then we went into secondary school. I did well in O-levels. She did well in O-levels, but she did a little better than me. And then we went to A-levels, and then she beat me there. But when it came to term test, every term, she and I were going a competition. Well, let's see who could come higher in class. Let's see who could come first or who could come second. That competitive element between the two of us is what propelled me to want to study more, because I'm not prepared to let my sister beat me, and she don't want to give me the bragging rights to say that I beat her. And therefore, that helps. But when we try to diminish the significance of that by talking about, well, the SEA and its pressure and the children and everything, what is wrong with the school? And that's my question. You see, because this prestige label that we put on these schools that make it seem like if it's not a prestige school, that somehow you're inferior. But we see students in some of these secondary schools who excel. But when you plant it in the child's mind from early on that, hey, if you pass for that school ain't too good, you know. It's the same syllabus. What makes the school? The teachers, the dedication and commitment of the teachers, and the drive and the discipline of the students. So I don't see, other than the prestige label, what's the difference between Success Laventille and St. Mary's? What's the difference between Mukarapo and Fatima? What's the difference between St. Anthony's and St. James Ek? You see, it's what we put into the heads, and not we. What some parents perceive. So since back in the 80s, we're hearing about, well, if you pass for a junior sec, somehow you're inferior. You're less than. So nobody don't want to pass on a junior sec because they look down on you. So you're supposed to pass the CIC and QRC and Hillview and Fatima. St. Joseph Convent. Holy name. You know? Because you pass for that. Hey, cream of the crop. But as someone who would have attended one of these schools, I could tell you, it's no bed of roses. It is no bed of roses. I don't know if it still exists, but I remember while I was there, the challenges that I faced because of the complexion of my skin. Because as you know, that particular school, you have a lot of students who go there who belong to the so-called elite, the Syrian Lebanese community, the French Creole community, and there was segregation while I was there. So if it is that you belong to the Syrian Lebanese community, the French Creole community, these students would line together, and that section was called the Milky Way. And if it is that you belong to the East Indian community, they would line together, and they used to call that Pieville. And then if it is that you belong to the Chinese sector, where they would line together, and then they would call that Wontonville or whatever as the case may be. And it's just something that happened naturally. But I fit in everywhere. Because when I went in there, I just happened to... Well, I didn't have that many friends when I was there. I was very picky about who I lined with, right? But I didn't identify with any particular grouping. But as I said, I still had to deal with challenges because of the color of my skin. where people would tell me, hey, go and stand up next to that blackboard and close your eye and close your mouth. And then they say, hey, look the blackboard wearing a uniform or some kind of strip and this like that. I laugh it off. But these are the things that I had to put up with, and others like myself. So there are things that happen in these schools that the general public is not aware of. And so while we aspire to want to send our children to these schools because they have a track record when it comes to academia, there's another side that you don't know about. But I have an issue when we come to knock the system and not understanding the significance of that system and the benefits to be derived therefrom. We live in a competitive world, and if it is that you only want to mollycoddle your children, say, well, thing, they get the marks to the school, there's only so many persons the school could take. Because when you get to Form 3 in these schools and you reach to the point where you have to select subjects for Form 4 and 5, there has been a culture where they make you believe that sciences is the be-all and end-all. Because if you do sciences, you could become a doctor, you're going to become a biologist, you could study, all of these different careers that surround sciences. But there are only 80 places for science. 80 places, and you have about 150 students or more competing for these 80 places. And again, it's the same thing that happens. So you had this streamlining exam when you came in Form 1, and now you're in Form 3, competing for these 80 places in sciences. A lot of us didn't want to do science, but because we were made to believe or to feel that if we don't do science or if we don't get chosen for science, something wrong with us. So you struggling now. You like business subjects, but I need to do science because that is where it's at. You need to be able to culture your children to deal with that type of pressure. It is what it is. So by you trying to take away the competitive element to talk about where we need to change the system and the SEA had to go and it's too corrupt and we need to come up with a system where we can assess the children from standard 1 until they reach standard 5, and how is that fair? How is that system fair? Because a child might start out primary school not doing too well, but as they grow and as they develop, their mental capacity, their inclination towards academia might grow. Why should a child then be penalized because they would have only realized their full academic potential in standard 4 or standard 5, but you grading them based on something that they did in standard 1, 2, and 3 when they weren't performing as well? So that recommendation makes no sense. You have 5 years or 7 years, and when they reach standard 5, this is what it is. They're going to do SEA. It is a competitive exam, and it prepares them for the challenges and the competition that they're going to face in life. So that when it is, they leave school, and they apply for a job, and they send in their application, and they're competing for 2 positions or 3 positions, and the company gets 50 or 60 or 80 applications or resumes for this job. What you going to say? Well, boy, the reason why you didn't get it is because your address is Laventil. Or the reason why you didn't get through is because your skin color too dark. Or the reason why you didn't get it is because your hair nappy. No, they're looking for the best, they're looking for the brightest, and it's not only that. You come and you sit and you do an interview. Based on how you perform in the interview, based on what you see, all of these things would come together. But you know what? To make ourselves feel better, we always had to pin the discrimination label on it. So they decide to zone you. You're bright, and parents don't go and find out what score their children got. To the best of my knowledge, you get a document on results day that shows how much you scored in everything, and the document also shows your overall percentage that you would have gotten in the exam. So I don't understand this talk about, parents don't go and find out what the children got and what score they got. Really? It's on the document, sir. As someone who always like to profess that you have children, you should know about that. I don't have any, but I'm saying I've seen some before. Right? Let me address another issue that was also raised, that they want the maths to maths. That we are the 3rd richest country in the Western Hemisphere, and we have the most amount of potholes in a country where we have the pitch lake. For the 1 billionth time, asphalt is not the only ingredient that you require to patch potholes. It is not the only ingredient that you require to pave a road. Some of the worst roads I have seen in this country is in La Brea, right by the Pitch Lake, that stretch that goes down to the Pitch Lake there. I mean, seriously? One of the other ingredients that you need to pave is bitumen. And contrary to what that same individual would have told us a couple weeks ago, bitumen does not come from the quarry. It is not gravel and sand and oxide. It is a byproduct of the petroleum refining process. But we want to educate and inform. And we are not educated and informed ourselves about the topic matter that we want to discuss. So when you keep talking about we have the pitch lake and we have the pitch lake and why we have the bad roads, pitch, asphalt alone is not the only ingredient. You understand that? The refinery is no longer in operation. So we have to now import the bitumen. That is going to take some time. So you need to understand all of the other materials. Go and research it and see what else is required. Because if you just go down to the pitch lake and you dig up pitch, throw it at the back of a dump truck, and then you come and you just dump it into the pothole, what you think is going to happen within a few days or a couple weeks with vehicles passing on the pitch alone? Really? Seriously? But we want to educate and we want to inform. And so I want to know, make the maths, Mr. Economist. Why is it that when the price of gas and oil low, we're suffering, and when the price of gas and oil rise, we're still suffering? I don't have the time today to go back into that. I discussed that 2 weeks ago, so perhaps you should pull back that show and listen to it. But I'll just give you a little thing again, all right? When the price of oil goes up, the price of gas goes up, other things go up as well. The subsidy goes up. The fuel subsidy that the state pays goes up because the state has to pay more for refined fuel, which we now import. But even if we were still refining that fuel at Petrotrin, at the refinery, we would still have an increased subsidy because the state, through Petrotrin, would be paying a higher price for the 100,000 barrels plus that they were importing every day to meet the 140,000 barrel capacity of the refinery. So when the price of oil goes up, the state pays the higher price. But if they do not increase the price at the pump, then it means the state now has to pay more to underwrite the cost of what you pay at the pump. Which is why in the United States now, where they don't have that subsidy, people are bawling because the price at the pumps continues to skyrocket. So much so that I am seeing videos surfacing now on social media where persons are actually going and siphoning gas out and fuel out of people's cars. They have these devices that go and pop in people's lids, sticking the hose down in people's tanks, and pumping the gas out of people's tanks to their gas tanks or to these containers. That is the level to which they have resorted to in the United States of America, where I have all the money. You want to talk about poverty, and we are the third richest country in the hemisphere, and yet still we have so much poverty, and how many people unemployed, and how many people suffering, and how many people living below the poverty line. As I had to point out to my friend from New Jersey quite recently, the very state that he lives in, that he has dedicated more than 40 years of his life to, more than he spent in Trinidad and Tobago, the number of persons, according to Forbes magazine, or the Forbes publication, as at 2022, in just that state alone, is 1.3 million people living below the poverty line. There are over 43 million Americans out of 330 million living below the poverty line. Up to now, we ain't talk about how many of them living just on the poverty line and how many living just above. And how many of them are a hair's breadth away from falling below the poverty line. In the United States, where you have all the money. The same United States where you have people on Fifth Avenue in New York, which is one of the richest states. In Manhattan, you have veterans who devoted their life to their country by fighting wars that they have nothing to do with, are now living on the streets in Manhattan and begging foreigners like myself, when we go, for a little something so that they could eat. But the same United States of America just gave, I think, some 800 million or billion or whatever it is in aid to Ukraine so that they could buy weapons to assist in the fight against Russia. But yet still, you have people in the United States who don't know where the next meal coming from, who can't pay their bills, who are just 1 month away from being evicted and becoming homeless. But we don't talk about that. No, we will call the station here to talk about Keith Rowley and the PNM and they're mismanaging the economy, and they don't know what they're doing. But in the very state that you live, where you have lived for over 40 years, with 1.3 million people living below the poverty line, chances are that every time you leave your home, you would see probably at least 3 to 5 people who fall into that category of living below the poverty line. But you came from Trinidad and Tobago, you are doing well. Why you don't criticize this 1.3 million people and call them lazy? Or how is it that you, a Trini, you who came from Trinidad and Tobago could be doing well there? And you have born and bred American citizens catching the nenin. They're more entitled to US than you, but they're doing well. But you doing well, they are not. They don't know where the next meal coming from. But we don't talk about that, right? 43 million American citizens. The most amount of billionaires in the world live in the US. The top richest 5 people in the world. The richest man, Elon Musk, worth over $300 billion. Coming up behind him is Jeff Bezos of Amazon, $200 and something billion. You have Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, billionaires. They have more money than they could ever spend. But how come we're not attacking them? The United States is the largest producer of oil and gas and exporter of oil and gas in the world. So why are there over 42 million people living below the poverty line in that country? As someone who has traveled to a number of states in the US, I have seen potholes. Many potholes. As a matter of fact, when I went in November last year in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale, there in Coral Springs, where I stay, I saw they were doing some road works there at the corner of Wiles Road and University Avenue. This was in November. Went back there, and when I left in January, no progress. Big pothole at the corner there. And I'm sure when next I travel, possibly when I go back there, I'm still going to see the same thing. But we like to, you see, when you don't travel, and the only thing you know about the United States is what you see on TV, and you figure, oh, everything is so great over there. No, it's not. Many times I have gone to Walmart, and when I walk outside, I'm seeing young mothers bouncing me up in the car park with the children begging, so you could spare a little small change so that my family and I could get something to eat. Yes, in the same United States of America. And I'm sure that exists in other places too. In the UK, or they like to talk about Dubai this and Dubai that. They feel they have that in Dubai too? Everybody in Dubai rich? But not the government. The government ain't doing enough. But we could only identify the negatives, but the good things that are happening, where the Ministry of Trade, as I played last week Thursday, would have assisted. And I played the clip with this young man who was pointing out that the first shipment of some 20,000 pounds of cassava and sweet potato being exported through the assistance of Export TT and the Ministry of Trade. We wouldn't talk about that. Your program is named Week in Review, but you missed that. The only thing you could review is the negative. Nothing positive happened last week in the country, right? So all the things that the state is doing, we don't know about that. We can't talk about that. Let's just focus on the negative and how many people suffering and how many people without jobs. Well, if it is 200,000 people don't have jobs and you have an eligible workforce of about 900,000, it means 700,000 people employed. So talk about the 700,000 people employed, but no, we'll focus on the 200,000 that's not. And that means that the government not performing. Really? But we want to come and talk. Educate and inform. You need to educate and inform yourself. But what you're coming to talk about, before you talk about it, and then to call me out, if you're talking nonsense and people are enabling you and calling and supporting what you're saying, not making sense, then I have to do it. It gives me no pleasure, but it is what it is. We go to the ads. We'll be back shortly.
I know we've been distant lately. Yeah, I know that things been crazy, but here's what I've come to realize. When you really get your high, ooh, you just come alive, and you feel that feeling that's hard to describe. Oh yeah, so baby come down. You are supposed to think till sundown. We go do what we want, anything. Oh yeah. I taking my on the rock, show me that way. And just let the music move your body. And you don't understand nobody, baby. Can't keep doing what you like. So when you really pick you up, it won't let you down. We'll have a real good time when we jam it. Come.
Optical, get a super 40% off frames, plus extra savings with the purchase of Supernova or Transition lenses. Enjoy these Easter savings until April 24th at all Value Optical stores. Special conditions apply. And feel the great buys.
Value Optical, expert care for your eyes.
Get ready! Pretty British, Brother J, and Ali Berry presents Caribbean Soca Madness Part 1. Drink your water and mind my business.
I go drink water and mind my business.
Saturday, April 16th at the Onyx venue, 27A Queensway, Bletchley, Milton Keynes, featuring the big band in the business, Iwer George.
Yes, and this is me, Iwer George, the big boss in the business. April 16th, Soca Madness Part 1. Yes, I'm going to be in London. I'm coming to shell it.
You know what I'm saying, yo, London, April 16th, it's all about the Caribbean Soca Madness Part 1. I will be there.
Music by DTTP, Rigo Suave, The Stage God, Selector G, Survival Number 1, and DJ Wince. Tickets available on Eventbrite UK. Early bird tickets, £35 from March 6th. For more info, call Allison at 447588376951. Trini British 447404-050703. And Brother J 447508862718. Saturday, April 16th. Caribbean Soca Madness Part 1. London, it's your turn.
Catch plenty savings this Lenten season in Extra Foods Plenty for 20. Swiss pasta cuts 5 for $20. Gala apples 10 for $20. Quaker instant quick oats 5 for $20. Mama ramen noodles 10 for $20. Sunshine choco gems 8 for $20. Caribbean flavors coconut milk powder 5 for $20. Biscuit cookies 13 for $20. And so much more. Sale ends April 11th. And check us out on Facebook and Instagram for even more specials. Extra Foods, always extra for less.
If you're experiencing pain, constipation, headaches, poor blood circulation, high or low blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, swollen or darkened feet, come visit us at Health and Wealth Lifestyle, located at 73 Eastern Main Road, Barataria, opposite Eastern Credit Union. We at Health and Wealth Lifestyle offer a wide range of services. Come and experience our new 3D analyzer, which allows you to have a look inside your body. We also provide live blood analysis, iridology, ionic foot detox with foot soak and foot massage, aquatherapy, full body massage, and organic supplements on sale such as Nano Silver, Nano Zinc, Body Light, cold pressed sesame oil, and more. Health and Wealth Lifestyle, located at number 73 Eastern Main Road, Barataria, opposite Eastern Credit Union. For more information, call 275-8359 or 288-1108.
Join Nicole Huggins for Health and Wealth Lifestyle every Monday from 9:05 a.m. to 9:55 a.m. right here on the street 919 FM.
Police, good day. Officer Best Price here. Johnny Q Auto Parts Division?
Yes, sir.
I'm here to investigate an assault on batteries.
Excuse me, sir?
Is it true? You have batteries selling for $488?
Yes. Power Master, Optima, Vata, and Megastar batteries.
So I can buy a battery for $488?
Yes, sir. For cars, trucks, and boats. Backed and distributed by Massey Automotive.
Which part?
Right here at Johnny Q Hardware and Auto Parts Division, 15 Arabita Avenue, Woodbrook. And our new Johnny Q Superstore, located at Lowlands Mall off Claude Noel Highway in Tobago. You could call 60 Tools.
All right. Thanks, boss. Nah, man. Granny,
do you have $488 to lend, man?
Hi, what's up, TNT? This is Wayne Johnson out of Brooklyn, New York. I always wanted to do something back home, and we're going to be doing our gospel segment on Mondays from 10 p.m. to 12 midnight. That's 10 p.m. to 12 midnight on 91.9 FM. Listen what I want you to do. Spread the word. Spread the word, TNT. Salvation, full and free. Salvation is for everybody. Mondays from 10 p.m. to 12 midnight. That's 10 p.m. to 12 midnight on 91.9 FM.
Hey,
Dynamic crew alongside Iwer George presents Soca Come Back. Featuring the boss himself, Iwer George. Iwer George. The boss man of Soca.
Yo, this is Iwer George, the big boss in the business, and I'm going to be in Grand Cinnamon on the 14th of April, Canada, forward the 6th at Coventry.
It's all going down the 14th of April at the Grand Cinnamon Banquet and Convention Center, Toronto, 3895 McNichol Avenue, Toronto, Ontario, 9 p.m. till. Tickets are just $35. Get them now at ticketgateway.com. Hey, so all you link up Dynamic Crew. It's all about Soca Come Back. Featuring Iwer George in concert.
Share the live. Share the live. The Street 919 FM on Facebook and Instagram. Share the live. Iwer George on Instagram. Share the live. Iowa TV and Street TV on YouTube. Share the live. The Street 919 FM.
Right, so welcome back. Thank you for staying locked to the Street 919 FM. So I was just thank you. Right, so I was making the point before the point that I started off with, that this perception that somehow these so-called prestige schools or the denominational schools that are run by private boards, that there's something wrong with them being allocated 20% of the, remember, they allocated 80% of their school placings, Form 1, to the state. It's not the other way around, that the state allocated them 20%, right? We need to understand that. And as I said before, the subvention that these schools receive from the government every year can be seen as the state purchasing this 80%. But remember, when these Form 1 students move on to Form 2, 3, 4, and 5, and even Form 6, there is no further subvention that these schools receive from the state for their for the benefit or the provision for these students when they move on. So the state purchases place for them in Form 1, but then they move on to Form 2 to 6, and they become the responsibility. All of their needs becomes the responsibility of the institution, and money has to be found to satisfy these needs. And how is this money found? Not everybody, not every prestige school, as we want to call it, is fortunate enough to have an all-inclusive fed that does very well, and they're able to raise significant sums from that. Not every school would be fortunate to have significant donations coming in from the corporate sector, or have a number of parents who are very active in the school who are from the alumnus, from the alumni association and so on. So therefore, we need to understand the benefits of this 20%. So sit down and understand how it benefits people. It is an opportunity, one, by which the school can raise funds. But two, it also provides an avenue where persons who would have gone to the school and who are desirous of having their offspring attend the school can be facilitated. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. If they already have siblings attending the school, why should you send them to a totally different school? It benefits the parents too, so that in the morning when I leave home and I have to make the school drop, I just go to one school and I drop off all my boys there. Or girls, as the case may be, because we have prestige girls' schools as well. Rather than I have to go and drop one on Frederick Street, and then I have to go down to West Moorings to drop off one there, and then I have to go down to Mucarapo Road to drop off another one there, when I could have dropped up all of them at the same school. And they may all very well be academically inclined and could have succeeded on their own. But there is benefits to be had. And some of the same people who criticize these things, right? You know, if they were in need and needed the opportunity, they wouldn't have a problem with it. Otherwise, it's so corrupt, and its corruption is unfair. In the United States, and I know people get upset when I talk about the United States, but you see, we need to understand Trinidad and Tobago doesn't operate in a silo or a vacuum. That we believe, for some reason, there are a lot of people in this country who believe that what happens in other parts of the world can't happen here or don't happen here. Right? So I don't understand how it is in the United States of America, which a lot of you like to quote, that you can have people living below the poverty line, not knowing where the next meal coming from, living on the streets, homeless, living in tents, on pavements with no running water, no electricity, no proper sanitation facilities in a country that gives away billions of dollars every year to other countries around the world so that their citizens could enjoy a better standard of living than some of their own citizens who would have contributed through paying taxes for that same money that their government is taking to send to other countries to improve the standard of living of those citizens. So if it is that America is the largest producer of oil and gas, based on your logic, there should be no poor people in the US. None. Everybody in the United States is supposed to be rich. Nobody's supposed to be living below the poverty line because they're exporting the most oil and the most gas. You think 20 years now while you're bigging up Guyana, you think 20 years and 30 years from now that everybody in Guyana is going to be wealthy? Look at what is happening in Guyana now, where there are 2 court cases taking place with respect to ExxonMobil. And the state is trying to recover some $9 billion in both cases. Some $9 billion in claims over claims that Exxon is alleged to have made that would have deprived that country of all that revenue. And now they're asking the Minister of Natural Resources, Energy and whatnot, what's going on with this case, because the timeline is coming soon where if it is nothing is done, the state, the country is going to lose this $9 billion as they lost with the first case. So we see what would have taken place over there, notwithstanding, we're talking about Ghana is going to be the next Dubai and all kind of nonsense. If it is that their energy revenue is not properly managed, as we see, and there's some mismanagement taking place now with respect to the negotiations between the state and these energy companies, Guyana is going to lose out. As we saw between 2010 to 2050, where under the People's Partnership government, the piss-poor deals and the sweetheart deals that they offered some of these energy companies, the sweetheart concessions that would have seen the citizens of this country robbed of taxes until 2024. You all don't talk about that. Members of the literati, don't talk about that. No, let us not go back to 2010 and 2015 and blame Kamala. Let's only talk about 2015 to 2022. But the things that happened between 2010 to 2015 that has us where we are now, that is we still reeling from the impact of those stupid decisions. You all don't talk about that. And I keep asking the question, when they came in 2010, the exchequer account, right? The highest it had ever been in terms of an overdraft was $10 billion in the history. But under them, with the highest energy revenues in the country's history, according to Kamla Prasad Bisesa, the overdraft on the exchequer account went from $10 billion to $33 billion. So they put the exchequer account $23 billion in the permanent deficit. So it means that the only way we could come out of that and go back into a positive position, this government has to reduce expenditure to the extent where they can get an additional $33 billion to pump inside it, to clear up that overdraft, and then get additional monies now to put it back in the black. But all they don't talk about that, where that money went. But all they want to know where the money gone. Or they get this amount of money and that amount of money to fight COVID, and where the money gone. But if it is that you're receiving the highest energy revenues in the country's history from 2010 to 2015, you take $16 billion from NGC and other places. Why the hell did you put the exchequer account in overdraft the highest in the country's history? And all they can't tell me that. Where that money went? What did we get for it? Under Keith Rowley, you get Point Fortin Hospital, Arima Hospital, Grandy under construction, the Central Block in Port of Spain, Roxborough's hospital built. Kamla built one hospital in Cuba from borrowed money from the Chinese. Where the money went? All they want to know where money went for zipline, but you ain't asking that question, where that money went. What did we get for it? What else? Tell me, what did they build? Other than that, they spent $200 and something million to build the licensing office headquarters in Caroni, where it is that money was supposed to build a number of satellite licensing offices around the country. But from the balance, what was left over from that money, right? Ruhan Sinanan, through $39 million, was able to build 5. Where that money went? You all ain't talking about that. Nah, we don't talk about that. But this government squandering and this government thieving, as I pointed out to you, if this government wanted to thief, the People's Partnership handed them a golden opportunity. All they had to do when they came into office was say, well, okay, the Curep interchange, the People's Partnership say going to cost $503 billion, but we have a contractor that could do it for $221. We're saying that it cost $503, and we're going to pocket the $300 billion difference. And everybody in the cabinet would have been smiling. They said it's going to cost $169 million to refurbish President's house, but we have a contractor that could do it for $89. Well, we will do it. We will give it to the contractor for $89, but we will say we go in with the PP's estimation of $169. So we go in and thief $80 million. They could have do that. The PP said it was going to cost over $100 million to fix the issues in Napa. But we have a contractor that could do it for $20 million. But we go in with their estimate of $100 million. So we will do it for the 20 and thief $80 million. They could do that. The People's Partnership said it would cost almost $1 billion to do the Red House project. But we have a contractor that could do it for $440. So you know what? We go in with their estimate of $1 billion and we will thief $600 million. We could do that. Arima Hospital, Point Hospital, all of these different projects where the budget that was estimated by the PP was far more than what this government delivered for. They could have said, well, we go in with the PP estimate and thief all that money. So that if they had lost the election in 2020, no biggie, because everybody would have been laughing all the way to the bank because they pocket heavy. But we don't talk about that. But this government corrupt and this government like to thief. And that's all you could say. But point me to any example of thievery and corruption under this administration. You can't do that. Hence the reason for the 2020 general election, they talk about everything. They throw the book and the kitchen sink at this government, but the one thing they didn't talk about in 2020, and I challenge any of you UNC from the illiterati to tell me differently. One thing they didn't talk about was corruption in that last general election campaign. We hear all about incompetence and how much people lost their work. Corruption definitely wasn't at the top. 342-0081 466-5391. Hello, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Dominic, brother.
Greetings.
Dominic, stay calm, boy. All that energy, them knuckleheads didn't understand nothing you see. Because you spoke about that already. Those knuckleheads, wanna be, never see, come see. Every topic that guy has is always about money. Right? What they actually want is corruption. That's what them knuckleheads want. Them fellas not on your level and them don't have no understanding to understand how governance is. And all them want is freeness, handouts, easy money, and just give me. Dominic, I want to deal with crunching some figures. I have an election to win, right, in the next 8 months. And as Joe used to tell me, let me strategize now. Let me hear what you have to see. Right? Dominic, anyway, let me say thanks to Minister, the Health Minister Terence Dial Singh for going back and fixing the CDAP allocation stock and what was unfixed. Pharmacists, 2 senior pharmacists tell me, one today tell me that they got their allocation of CDAP drugs, Timoptic, and another one yesterday.
Excellent.
So the problem's supposed to be sorted out. So Mr. Diaz saying, don't take it personal. I'm just one voice for the voiceless. And I will continue doing it. Let me crunch some figures now, Dominic. I have elections to win in the next 8 months because I have nieces and nephews. I want a level and a fair playing field. I don't want nothing handed to anybody in any easy way. 3,300 votes. What is the MP in Toko Sandy Grande? I find he's very low key and he's a son of the soil that people love. What's his name again, Dominic?
Roger Monroe.
Roger Monroe. I would like Pastor Google someone to get him on. He seems to be a very popular guy, but I would like to know what he is doing because that is where the signal will be sent. He had the largest margin of victory in Toko Sandy Grande by 3,300 votes. And PNM has to maintain that and keep the people happy on that side because it's a very crucial regional cooperation in the local election. The Hakata Talparo, 1,900 votes, the PNM win by. Right? The next one, Tunapuna, 1,900 votes. Understand, Dominic, the UNC voter base don't ever move. 1,900. Right? Minister Terence Diazing in St. Joseph. Well, I know McGill Sharon Felix has worked very hard. It's only 800 votes he win by. That's why I want to focus on. Faris Alwari in San Fernando West, 1,800 votes. That was trying to show Martin and them. And that's the reason for Watson Duke on the corridor. I Joey Kuru, Mrs. DC's great Joey Kuru, let me strategize. And here the one, Dominic. Maruga Tableland. Understand what going here, 500 votes with PNM win the last election by. This girl, Michelle Benjamin, won by 1,072 votes. So what happened is, the undecided that voted for the PNM 500 votes went across to her And then the disgruntled PNM voters who was vexed with the PNM went across to the UNC and she win it back and she get 500 more votes. You understand, Dominic, the UNC voting move? The PNM just lose. They lose to 500 and the undecided move. So I just want to maintain and let the PNM know now. All who feel that I against them and all are being repetitious. It's about speaking now, and if you're intelligent enough to understand that at the end of the day, take what you have to pick up from what people saying and get on the ground and realize how close the margin of victories are. But Dominica, listen, them fellas is knuckleheads. Them fellas don't understand that New Jersey City. Thanks, Dominic, brother. Stay strong.
Thank you, sir. Right. Before I just take this call, I may ask Jason D'Souza on the chat, right? You want me to talk about AV drilling? Let me make sure it's you. Talk about your partner, AV drilling, and Copa, and the list goes on. I want you to add to that list, Jason, right? The other, you remember there was another scandal that we heard about at Petrotrin just after the AV drilling issue about a certain contractor who had been stealing diesel through hidden compartments in the trucks, the tank wagons for years, and the estimated losses to Petrotrin for that theft was far greater than AV drilling. Why you all don't ask questions about what's happening with that? Is it because that contractor is not linked with the PNM, so you're not interested? The level of hypocrisy that we get from you all. If you genuinely care about country and the well-being of Petrotrin, ask questions about that too. Don't only focus on AV drilling. Because there was plenty more money is alleged to have been stolen through that racket than the alleged AV drilling matter. All right? Good. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dominic. Hello?
Yes, sir.
You hearing me properly?
Loud and clear.
All right. The exchequer account. That is 10 million or 10 billion you're talking about?
It was, the highest it had ever been in overdraft was 10 billion prior to 2010. When the People's Partnership left, it went to 33 billion in overdraft.
Okay, all right. Well, I just want to start by saying in about 2-3 minutes that I don't know if you ever come across this story in the New Testament where Christ went to converse with this rich, powerful man. You know what I mean? And when the conversation started, the rich, powerful man was in something like a big, luxurious chair or some kind of throne. And Christ was sitting simply on a stone or a stool or something. But by the time the conversation ended, Christ was sitting where the rich man was sitting, and the rich man was sitting where Christ was sitting. I just say that to say, like my brethren before, you just see them not in the class with you, Dominic. Yeah, you have the title. Yeah, you maybe had the certification. They'll be talking it through. But the whole world could see you a trillion miles ahead intellectually, academically, and every other totally. Than these fellas. Because I'm like, I think somebody was telling me this morning that a liter of gas in America now is about $13.
I haven't checked the prices in a while, but I know it high.
Yeah, and down here we pay approximately about $5, right?
TT.
And, pardon me?
TT, which is a few US cents.
Okay, but they will have us believe that we're going on dead just now because we can't pay for gas.
Correct.
You understand? The next thing I want to say, I find we displace, especially African people in this country, we displace too much emphasis on the SCA. Yes, it is important. Yes, you're supposed to ensure that your child do as best as they could. But somehow, boy, Dominic, about 85% of the African community after that will be very lackadaisical when it comes to the real test, which is the secondary, tertiary part of the thing. I see that for myself. It happened with me too. Real emphasis on common entrance and SCA. But they're not emphasizing that you keep certain standards and quality while you go through your 5 or 7 years in secondary school, which could lead on to other things. So I just want to tell people, and I also want to thank the late Dr. Morgan Job for this too. You understand? And always have these Africans cheering on the TV the night after the exam saying, oh boy, the maths was hard, but the English was every single year. I saw me in line. If I line, somebody could call and tell me something. But something about that doesn't sound right and doesn't look right. You understand? The third thing I want to say is that between the now the UNC 1 and the UNC 2, that approximately 16 years, right? Who then complain about they should change the Trinity Cross because it's only Christian living here? And who then complain about changing the Constitution? None of them. Not one of them. Zero. Zilch. Did anything of significance when it came to those type of matters. I just say, the opposition in this country is traditionally just political. You see like what is the games this one playing here? They have no interest, right, in the progress of this country we call Trinidad and Tobago. And by history, and by all accounts, the only party, Dreadman, that's doing anything of significance for this country is the PNN. Right? Because right now in Tobago, the chief secretary is not the chief secretary. And the PSA president is not the PSA president. All the plain, all they understand what's happening in this country. All right. The first thing I want to say too is that the U.S., Dominic, money used to be valued by the amount of gold that you have. Right? Somewhere along the line, people like the U.S. start to print money. Right? And it's the U.S. dollar is the real currency, the reserve currency of the earth, of the world. They could just print money and don't do nothing again, and they will make money off of printing their money. Because to get a US dollar down here is about $7 or $8 or $10. Right? So if we want to compare with these type of economies, we can compare with them. We don't get our revenue the same way they get their revenue. Right? And the last thing I want to say, all right, well, I don't say it already. Right? We don't earn our revenue the way they earn their revenue. So we cannot, our economies are different, right? And it's time we wake up and smell the coffee. Saying Dr. Rowley and this government and do nothing. When he built about 5 hospitals, right? Complete numerous projects like the Brian Lara, the President House, Whitehall, whatever. And he ain't do nothing yet. Well, all they bring back our government, was never build an industry, was never build nothing to bring revenue to this country. And it's only take taxpayers' money now. Right? The proof is there. Right? If the PNN was really a party that coming here to thief, they could have leave all the projects at the price they were previously at and take the rest of money. But they didn't do that, so go every wake up now. Why can't put more than a block for nobody in? But what I just be reading the papers, listening the news and observing, it is clear. It's chalk and cheese. Everybody, anybody who is sending that opposition, in Shanishma, whatever you want to call them, it's the same thing. And just before I go, I just want to thank the Muslim community. I find the Muslim community, a lot of people we don't like marriage, so it ain't going to make sense saying that I hope people don't like me for this. But I find in the past 2 years, Dominic, the Muslim community played an extremely mature role in that whole pandemic. You understand what I'm saying? If there's anybody to jail, it was the Christians and them. I'm telling you that. But the Muslim, the leadership, I ain't talking about international and them who they say there's Muslim, I'm talking about the leadership. Even in the Hindu community too. They always let you know, and they made it clear to us, that this is not a game, and we're supposed to follow the government agenda, or, for want of a better word, and do the right. So I want to congratulate them on that, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. And let me just touch on quickly on one point that you made there, right? With respect to the focus on the SEA. You know, one of the biggest problems, I'll make a controversial statement here. You see, when parents, a lot of the parents who focus, let me not say it that way. Some of them who believe that the prestige school is the be-all and end-all, that somehow by a child going to the prestige school, wherever it is, that automatically means that they're going to come out with a full certificate, that they're going to get 8 and 10 distinctions and so on. When that doesn't happen, disappointment sets in for that child too, right? So that if it is that you're so insistent on that the prestige school, and the unfortunate thing is, because you have some parents who have the mindset that when my child reach 18 and they finish secondary school, my work done. So their job now, they now must go and get a job and see about themselves, because now it's to see about me. Somehow, when the child was born, you received a certificate that said, well, you are responsible financially for this child until they reach 18 or until they finish school, and then after that, they're on their own. Yeah? The prestige school doesn't guarantee that, huh? All right. Jenny, morning. Afternoon, sorry.
Good afternoon, Dominic. Good afternoon to all the callers and listeners on 91.9. Sometimes people have to understand not everybody is of the waterfront ilk, nor are they from the city of Roxborough in Tobago. And that people do read and people understand. So when they continue with their rhetoric, it will just be benefiting those who don't read and who don't do any type of research and really doesn't understand the history of this country. And sometimes we have to be blamed for that, with not knowing the history of this country, especially with regards to the inception of the PNM and what they would have done to bring this country to where it is at. Because no other government has put in the infrastructure that the PNM has done. PNM has laid down all the infrastructure. Because prior to the PNM being in governance, it was the colonials. And they were just there and benefiting from the largest, and persons of color like myself and others weren't allowed to vote, not allowed to take part in legislature, not allowed anything in this society because we didn't have land, we didn't have anything. And the infrastructure was not as it is. With the inception of PNM, all those things that have changed, yes, there are the challenges because many years they were in office, and like everything else, sometimes people get complacent, things happen and all that. However, history would show every time people change their mind from the PNM for whatever reason, and they go to another party, that party don't even make 2 terms in office. They go right back to the PNM, so it says something. But again, we need to teach our children the history not only of Trinidad history, but our ancestral history, so that they'll have a pride in them to start with. That's 1. 2. Parents and the society and peer pressure and all that need to ease up on children with this prestigious school. The schools are building is the learning that takes place there, because I know people who went prestigious school and came out with 1 pass. 1 pass alone, and not even in no big subject. And they was in the prestigious school, QRC, as a matter of fact. So the school and the prestige, yes, it may have some kind of weight or something. However, if you don't apply yourself, whether in a prestigious school or not, you will not get a good result. I've known people who went to junior sec, and they are doctors and they are lawyers and they are well within the society, whether in trade and otherwise. I've known people like myself went to ordinary secondary school. I went to Woodbrook Secondary School, and lots of my classmates are doctors and they are lawyers and they're all over, whether in trade and otherwise. So the school and the prestige, while it may have some affluence of people and the pressure it puts on them, if they're more focused on telling the child, when you go to school, is to learn. And when the child comes home, you help that child. You may not understand everything the child learns, but being there, being inquisitive, inquiring, you could also learn. And it will give the child the motivation to want to learn. So those are the things we need to put our emphasis on and stop this prestigious school, because junior sec children have the alma mater and there is real link up and there is help one another and all that, just like any other school. But we do not publicize those things. We always go on the QRC and the CIC boys and the Bishop girls and the all that. But Curab Junior Sec girls and Five Rivers and Monthope and others who went on to senior comprehensive, they have the alma maters also. But again, society always put labels on things that they feel they could put in a box. And things that they cannot understand, they seem to put it aside and say that is normal and that is strange and all that. And we need to just reprogram the way how we do and we treat the things. And finally, before I go, I want to let Mr. Watson Solomon Juke know that Trinidad, while we are Trinidad and Tobago, we are a unified island in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad is not Tobago. The politics of Tobago is not the same politics of Trinidad. While you can get away with all that you would have done in that space, you're on charges for rape and all that, because this high court and all the other alleged and allegations, and people brush it off in Tobago and say we're haters. In Trinidad, it's something totally different. So it is easy to get a few people to walk with you and only have bags and they're giving out this and giving out that and making their grand speeches because you seem to live in your own head. That is your affair. But please, do not feel that I come in to meet citizens or residents of the city of Roxborough, because you is the one, Mr. Deputy Chief Secretary, said the people in Roxborough who you represent, they don't read, and they don't watch the news, so they don't know nothing. This is not Roxborough. Reach home safely, Dominic, and it's a pleasure. Love everybody. Go on.
Hello, good afternoon. Okay, lost that one. Let's see what we have here. Hello, good afternoon.
Dominic, good afternoon.
Central.
Dominic,
Central.
The two students who got the President Medal, their grandparents were part of the waterfront ilk. And also, if I was there and the reporter asked me a question, well, what I come there for? I come to support the leader. So hell what they're debating. That is not the point. The point I come to support the leader. So knowing what they're debating, it really makes sense. Okay, Dominic.
Thank you, Central. Well, I would say to you, the waterfront ilk, sir, came about between 2010 to 2015. The grandparents of those two children who got the President's Medal, I'm sure they had plenty more sense than those folks who went down to the waterfront to support the leader and have no idea what they're supporting, right? So for all they know, what was being debated could have been negative for them and for their well-being and that of their children, but are supporting the leader. But when PNM people say, are supporting my party till I'm dead, something wrong with them. And they ain't care. All they say now, all they supporting the PNM till I'm dead, all they supporting. All they know what they supporting. And no problem with that. But as you just said, you're supporting your leader. It don't matter what is being debated. Yeah? That is the mindset of waterfront ilk, sir. I'm sure the grandparents of those two children would never have said that. Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Greetings.
Dominic, the UNC people, there are no shame at all. Look how much of them for the court right now. There are no shame at that from in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. Hello. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dominica. First time I got.
Welcome.
I think management could do something about that person who is calling Dr. William's name in corruption, because it is presenting a thing on. But it's a good thing. You notice most of the programs that doesn't go to date, like that program posting, it is competed with disclaimers all the time concerning the concordat, right? I just wanted to add to you that somebody from the station should go and look at the beautiful community centers being built, especially the one in Belmont here, the Belmont Community Center. If it's how lovely that thing look, the building looking, and the media is not picking it up, the print media and the television. So I suggest that maybe somebody like Partner Google and yourself who doing proper research and informing people, you know. And I will take this guy's advice. What's his name is? The guy who normally would call him Asian man. That maybe another extensive work could be for you for television too, because you're doing a wonderful PR job, basically for the country. You know, for the government will get regardless, you know, and putting history there. I just want to add before I go, there are so many things as well. There's a guy who will call in and COP and misinform people that all these various, the CEDAC, the old age and these pension was started by the PNM. And he's, you know, the only reason why the partnership government added it twice or three times the amount is because of they had the biggest purse to give out. And this is lack of misinformation where he is also bad talking the elders who are all party to get to the young people. So I just wanted to say that because I want Fernand to be good, don't be fooled by another black man who is like Watson, like what he did with Jack Warner and all these various people to give PDP the vote. Right, you might be staying in a suspect building that answerable to a lot of things. Anyway, have a blessed day, and I'm tuned in again. Thank you very much, Dominic.
Thank you, Mr. Bootman. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Dominic. Dominic?
What's going on here? Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, Dominic, can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Hello, good afternoon.
Hey, Dominic.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Long time.
Greetings.
Boy. I sit down here reading the papers, right?
Yes.
And it's really showing me how the print media, the Guardian and the Express is totally against the government of Trinidad and Tobago, the PNM government led by Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. You know, they are comparing the legal fees at the UNC, right, in the past, to the legal fees now.
I'm not surprised.
I watching them naming some attorneys getting some briefs and how much the briefs is. Those briefs do not add up to billions of dollars, and they are making it look to. But you see, the media is very influential, Dominic.
Correct.
Because the way how they put in the story, comparing the briefs of the PNM now to the UNC, they are trying to create mischief, right? And also, Dominic, our coalition government doesn't work. We see that in 2010, when the People Partnership was in government, right? That everybody was seeking for their self, right? They wasn't studying the citizens. Everybody was just studying to grab from the treasury, right? The taxpayers' money, and they wasn't looking to create anything for the people on the ground, right? So a coalition government, but Duke is coming into Trinidad, right, to form a coalition with the UNC, because they have a guy who is called your program. He said you don't want to be repetitious. Bro, you got to be repetitious. When you see what's happening, how the PNM law doesn't sit by 1,000 now, you got to work on that, right? Because Duke is coming into the hard ground which by the PNM voters shift on the east-west corridor to try and see if he could weaken the PNM to get less people to vote, to pick up votes, so the UNC could try and get into the back door to win the next election, right? But let Duke keep on doing what he's doing in Tobago, firing people without any reason, and doing what he's doing there. And the people in Trinidad will not make a decision like that to follow the PDP, because they don't see the motto operandi of the PP to give their people the best. And anybody who votes for the PNM, as he said, he will fire them. So we are aware of Duke, what he's trying to do. Right, Dominic? Let's listen to your program. Good program.
Thank you. Barataria.
Right, my brother. Good day, man. Financial group. You see, this fellow that I'm yesterday, you may have to turn off my radio, because if a man could tell you there is nothing an American citizen would say about the founder, bad about the founder of this nation. Don't care what economy, what crisis America go through. The founding father is king. When a man could disrespect our premier, what do you expect? If he can understand, if you look at what's going on in England right now, tell them, it's our Bataria Corporation, municipal tax going up to $3,000. Heating bill going up. I see people living off our welfare telling me we're going to have a choice. I see a lady having a potato in a microwave. They have a choice between utility bills or simple groceries. So the safest thing now is to go buy a food bank to get food, and here the food bank telling you, the thing we cooking here, that's nutritious, you know. Children can run around and play sports in school and think no more, you know. And that is a place, what they say, rip off countries for how many years? They are supposed to be the most wealthy country in the world, right?
Yes.
And they're suffering. There are people here who are going to America, living in the car, Get up all morning, you're living in our car park. The paying $5 to sleep in our car park. The man provide a shower for them to do brush the teeth, change the clothes in the car, and they go on to work. In Trinidad, we don't have a problem. The problem we have in town, Mr. I don't like to call them dumps, is addicts. You eating and messing up tongue and pulling garbage bag into empty lots and busting it like dogs. They are addicts. When you tell the same brothers in Port of Spain stop selling drugs and fighting among themselves, that will solve half the problem in town. Now, I just try to figure this. I'm not going to come to challenge you. Whether you must be brave enough to call here and talk that garbage here. You must be brave enough to call here and challenge this gentleman on anything he says. Because if you can't remember, imagine that you want to talk about common sense and didn't remember Wednesday was a holiday and common sense was Tuesday. You will listen to that? Dominic, boy, forget that. Enjoy your day, my brother.
Thank you, sir. See. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dominic.
Good afternoon.
Let me shout out Jenny. Jenny always shouting out Zena. Jenny morning. Mano, all those who looked on and listening. I want, this is for Tobago. Tobagonians, all those who looked on. All you take note of what is going on. All you ball about PNM and nepotism and the money and the family they giving and what's going on in the House of Assembly right now? Brothers and cousins and goddaughters and everybody coming together, and all of a sudden Winston James can't win for whatever is his name, can't realize that is nepotism. All of a sudden he can't see that, and he was this big analyst. All of them making excuses now. But Tobagonians only watch what is going on, because I can't see for the life of me how all you rail up yet and march on the House of Assembly to find out if Duke is the deputy chief of the House of Assembly over there. What he doing setting up office in Trinidad? Now, I'm not saying a party can form and manage and come forward for a next election, but the deputy chief secretary is in Trinidad campaigning. What is that? Who paying him? Where the money is coming from? You getting a salary from the House of Assembly and you base in Trinidad campaigning for election. Tobagonians, all you wake up and smell the coffee and get real. Take it, where the taxpayers' money doing? The House of Assembly money if it paying in. Because nobody in Trinidad Duke will vote for himself. So, all you wake up and ask questions over there. Fally always asking questions, and he want answers and he go call in the police. All you start to ask questions over there. Thank you, Dominic, for the opportunity this morning. Thanks.
Most welcome, Zina. Let's see what's happening. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dominic. Hello?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Dominic. Good afternoon.
Hey, Angie.
Here now, is Central. I hear call earlier on and talk about the two students and is he a call and talk about the two students and
Yes,
the parents
and that their grandparents would have been of the waterfront ilk.
What he's trying to tell us is that they were rewarded for following blindly. That's what he's trying to tell us.
Apparently.
I'm just asking. Have a good day.
You too. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon to you, Dominic.
Good afternoon, sir.
This is the kind of nonsense I had to tell you. That info call I'm talking about the children who graduated, who passed, that the parents were working on the waterfront. He come out this Sunday to jackass the scene. What do you expect from them? Another mantra go. These people distrust this country, they will never ever about country. Time longer that planking. The love money bag or the food change. And God, you have a safe and let people go.
Thank you, sir.
Easy.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, Dominic.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, to the listeners. Miss Jenny. Morning, Angie. Good afternoon, Angie. I know here, Angie. Mr. Bataria, what's up? Hey, I get called out to, but I want to tell you something. I've been a christening here this afternoon. My name on your program is PNM till I die. Alien man is reserved for the VNR program, right, brother? Thank you very much. Yeah, Concord. I can't you spell it too good still is AAK. Concord AC. Right? I heard the brother just pronounce it and call me out on education. Before you come out here, he mentioned this place now. This first world country. Where's the first world country everybody just talk about again?
Was that Dubai?
No, the next one, the one where the fella ruled with iron fist and everything come out good after. Huh?
Singapore.
Singapore. Yeah, he mentioned Singapore. No, if you had to develop any society, Miss Brother Solia, it must have educate. You must educate the society. I was making a contribution when Mr. Patrick Manning had almost toppled the mafias and thing in terms of the recruitment of the youths was diminishing in terms of recruiting them for, crime and whatnot and what have you. Because apparently at that point in time, I have to admit, a lot of people had gravitated to developing themselves. I am one of those, and there are many of us who did that. No, you can't just come and say you want to develop a society without education. What does irk me, Dominic, bro, is you see educated people who get the education from Trinidad and Tobago and then coming and telling me about the education system like Morgan Job, and they spit up. When Mr. Patrick Manning opened the gates to UWI, they start to say I remember he saying the education in UWI ain't good again. Just because when you used to go, it was a ghost town and was you alone, so your status, brain did kind of go up, so you was feeling like you're so special. But because Mr. Patrick Manning opened it up, and people took advantage of it. Oh, you can't remember that, Dominic, when they just put up on UWI education because Mr. Manning did open the gate and a lot of... You remember that?
Yes, all and sundry now would go and water down the thing.
Yeah, boy. So I want to know. Let me tell you, and they are closer now. They don't know the disservice. They are not aware of the evil that they're exonerating by helping the brethren and them stay in one psychological position waiting for a savior to come when the opportunities are there for all. If you understand what I'm trying to say, it's just a matter of ban your belly, sacrifice, and apply yourself. You cannot develop a society with gunmen soldier. You have to know something. You have to know how to wire a house, you have to know how to build a road, you have to know how to mix concrete, you have to know how to mix chemical, you have to know how to do something in order to apply yourself. And you see what you and other people will be doing, talking, spitting up on education every time you come on the radio. That has disturbed me, boy, Dominic. But I'm sure you hear it in my voice. I don't really sound so anything, but I hate it because I just be trying to encourage them, brothers, and them to let them know that when they're hustling, is different subjects they actually applying in the hustle. Here's a chemist, here's a physicist, here's a social worker, here's a this. And if you can apply that, take sacrifice for 3 months, and take those abilities you're using hustling and formalize it and academize it, you will be much better off than the person who parents rich and send them to good schools. You will have a far more leap and bound in terms of understanding academia and how it could be applied in life and stuff like that. And it does get me real mad when they're not helping to develop the society. And I'm glad too in some cases that, Aisha program get more serious in terms of come with something nation building, come with something to develop the minds of the people out here, because that's the only way we can develop the society. And in closing, Dominic, one more point. And we say about the denominational schools is right. It's an attitude, towards education. This thing about zoning and zoning, education has no boundaries. Education don't need an air-conditioned class, so to speak. I'm not saying leave everything as it is. You can educate yourself anywhere and develop your mind anywhere. And I will always counter them. My phone is full long and mash up Saturday, otherwise I would do part of the job, but he kind of diffusing the nonsense that I brother that stuff. But I get back on now and back on here. Dominic, you have a nice day and to all the listeners later. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Why Africans is against food in this country still, boy? Duke leave Tobago and come down here hard. Long time by tire street. Right? But by tire they pick up a man that resembles a moose. Now they bring a man where you charge in that tire, but tire people have to be nutritional, right? Who buy a tire and do it like them now? Thank you.
Thank you. I have time for one more quick one. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. Yes, Dominic. Yeah, Dominic, about Central and these people, boy, I don't know. They, like, Trinidad belongs to only one race of people, right? And I would like to highlight that, we don't highlight those children that get any basketball scholarships, the athletic scholarships, and these kind of scholarships that mostly Afro-Trinidad just get, right? We don't highlight that. We only highlighting the academics. You know what I'm saying? But you're right again about the Concordat. That is the way it has been, and that's the way, not thinking that, But again, these UNC fanatics, they see Trinidad and they see riches only for one race. Riches shouldn't go across to the Africans. That would offend them. But then I don't know why we people wouldn't wake up and see that they are not about country, they are about race. And totally about race, people forgetting when they arrested or detained over 9,000 African youths exclusively at the, at the jailhouse or at Arima Santa Rosa. You ever visited that place lately, Dominic? That $330 million facility that looking like Shantytown now. You know what I'm saying? Hello, Dominic.
I passed by it recently.
$300 and something million, and this place looking like Shantytown. So I don't know, these people have no shame, boy. And a lot of we youths, the African youths, have to wake up. That is all. If they educate themselves a little bit by getting knowledge and what's going on, current affairs, because I hear youth criticizing and saying Eric Williams was at this and at that, and he doesn't know the truth. Right? So all we want is truth and righteousness, and Trinidad will be on the way. Thanks a lot, yeah. And Lockdown Western is Barry here, or everybody Barry.
Thank you, Barry. Mano, you have 30 seconds.
Good afternoon, Dominic. Well, I can't say what I say in 30 seconds. But you see, Central, I wonder if what he said, if he think what he was going to say before he said, because it make no sense to be talking about, Morning, Jenny, morning, good morning, everybody. Playing the big old love one another. And Dr. Rowney, mash the extra board, watching the review mirror, and swing corner when you see the swing too much to them off board. Are gone.
Thank you, Mano. Out of time, not out of things to say. Join Sharon and Bruce in the morning, 6:15 for Titans of Democracy. And God's willing, I will be back with you on Tuesday with Bruce, and we'll continue the discussion. The gentleman asking about the Forex issue on YouTube, I'll try and address that matter during the course of the week or next week. So I'm out. Enjoy the rest.